Well, the Minister of Police, General Bheki Cele, recently released statistics on gender-based violence under the lockdown. At the same time, the media has had its own take about the reality of the situation, leaving citizens a little confused. Well, to discuss the story further, I'm joined now via Skype by Joan. She's a journalist from Bhekisisa. Joan, good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining us. As I've said in the intro, I mean, we've seen the police ministry coming out. Joan, can you hear me? It's Lindi.
Hi, yes, I can hear you.
Sure. As I was saying in the intro, we've heard the police ministry come out to say that, you know, their numbers and what they're sitting with doesn't really correlate with what some media houses and even NGOs have said about the reality of gender-based violence in South Africa. Why would it be so difficult for us to come to one conclusion during this time?
Yes, we've really struggled to find statistics on this that really takes all of the different avenues into account. And as a result, it's been really difficult to know exactly how many cases of gender-based violence we've seen during lockdown. It's been far less than we've expected.
Sure. Would you say that, you know, this issue has been receiving enough attention, both from the media side and from the police?
I think from the media side, we saw a lot of reporting early on from call centres, and I think that's thanks to our strong GBV activism in the country. But we've seen very little that focuses on the survivor's experience. So I think there's opportunity for us to be reporting more about what women are actually going through in some of these situations.
Well, tell us more about that, and how can that be done under the current lockdown conditions?
Do you mean how can we report more on women's experiences?
Yes.
I think that's very much about getting in touch with shelters and people who are on the ground, who are the people who are the closest to survivors of gender-based violence.
Sure.
And it's important in those cases to make sure that you are empowering people when you're doing the interview.
Sure. And since publishing the article on 14 April, how much more have the numbers of reporting increased, would you know?
In total, the Gender-Based Violence Command Centre has received about 50,000 calls during lockdown. A very small percentage of those calls were actually about gender-based violence. So that translates to about 500 to 1,000 calls per day and 100 calls a day about gender-based violence.
Sure. And speaking about the Gender-Based Violence Command Centre, have they received any more assistance in terms of social workers?
Yes, in the first lockdown period, we saw that call centre was severely understaffed because they were fielding just so many calls a day. Now the department has employed more than 1,800 social workers to help with the command centres and the various projects running there.